day before Thanksgiving in 1971, a man identifying himself as Dan Cooper bought a plane ticket from Portland to Seattle. He hijacked the plane, claiming he had a bomb in his briefcase, and demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes. He jumped out of the plane with the money and the bomb somewhere over the Pacific Northwest, never to be seen again. The FBI claims to have investigated over 1,000 people, including dozens of deathbed confessions. In 2016, 45 years after the hijacking, the FBI suspended its investigation of the case. While the FBI is no longer looking for D.B. Cooper, there is a community of people who are trying to solve the case on their own. Welcome to the Cooper Vortex. In this episode, we're lucky to be joined by Tessa D'Amico. Based in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, Tessa is somewhat new to the Vortex. She has, however, made a name for herself on the D.B. Cooper Mystery Group on Facebook, and has come into this with a fresh perspective and lots of enthusiasm. She's planning on using her background in tech to build an online collaborative tool for fellow Cooper investigators to have quick access to all the facts, documents, suspects, and theories in this case all in one handy place. Sounds pretty cool, right? Enjoy this episode with my good friend, Tessa D'Amico. All right, well, let's start with, how was CooperCon?
It was so much fun. I thought I was going to have a good time, but it just exceeded my expectations. It was awesome.
Had you been to any of the other events before that?
No, this was my first one.
Okay, cool. So were you nervous to show up?
I wasn't nervous. I was excited to meet a lot of the people that I had, conversed with online for months and months. I was excited to meet all those people in real life, but not nervous. I was just super excited.
When did you first hear about D.B. Cooper?
I had watched Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates, and the segment was just about D.B. Cooper. I'd never heard the story ever before. I found out after my parents knew about it and other, family members and stuff, but it had never crossed my plate until that episode of Expedition Unknown.
And I know this is a rude question to ask a lady, but how old are you, Tessa?
I am 34.
34. Okay.
Yeah.
So like myself, this was something that happened before we were born.
Mm-hmm.
And the Expedition Unknown episode, are you talking about the more recent one that Eric Eulis was on?
No, this was the very first episode. I think he's done maybe 2 or 3, but this was the very first.
And that one focuses on Kenny Christensen, I think, right?
You know what? I can't remember right now, actually, if it does or not. I don't know if they even brought too many. You know what? It might. I'd have to rewatch it. I haven't seen it since it originally aired, actually.
Yeah, I get some of those History Channel ones mixed up myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then when did you really start to fall into the Vortex?
So I think it was after the HBO documentary came out, and that was the first time that I heard the Barb Dayton story. And I will just kind of say right here out in the open that I don't have a horse in the race. I don't have a suspect. I did just think that Barb Dayton as a suspect was a very interesting person, just because, she's so different for many, many, many reasons from everyone else. And I kind of was there's really something amazing and really interesting here. Just the fact that so many people had come forward and claimed to be D.B. Cooper and wanted to be D.B. Cooper. I do a little bit of screenwriting just as a hobby. And I was okay, someone needs to make a good movie about this. I know that there have been, various films or TV movies and whatnot, but and I do know that Rob Bertrand, who's also very active and has the D.B. Cooper escape room, that he has a D.B. Cooper script that he's had in his back pocket for a while. But I was I want to try my hand at this, and so I was I better get some research going now. So that was kind of how things really kind of got kicked up to the next level for me.
And what was your chosen method of researching the case?
So I started on Wikipedia, and then I got Skyjack, the book by Jeffrey Gray. And then I was like, okay, I've got like a pretty good grasp on just like probably the most high level overview of what really happened. I really like Skyjack, the Jeffrey Gray book. I feel like people don't really give it as much credit or talk about it as much in some of the DB Cooper circles, but it was a great book that gave me a really clear introduction of like what happened, who was involved, who were the key players. And then after that, I was like, okay, I should maybe talk to people who are really invested in this. So then that's how I kind of stumbled upon the Facebook group that Eric Eulis runs.
And you became pretty active there.
Yeah, definitely way more than I had ever thought or maybe hoped to be, but here I am.
Is Skyjack the only book you've read up at this point?
No, I have. I also have the Gunther book. I just got actually Marty Andrade's book. I'm not too far into that quite yet. And I also have the Foreman's book that I got at CooperCon that they generously gifted to me. So thanks, Ron and Pat, if you're listening.
Yeah, they're pretty awesome. What's your take on the Gunther book?
It's interesting. Just as a piece of literature, it's good. It's great. Even it's easy. It's an easy read. There's a lot of decoding that needs to happen. I'm kind of like powering through a lot of books still. So it's one of those ones where I've like made a lot of notes of things that I want to come back to, but I don't have a ton right now that I could say that I don't think anyone else has really said. I don't have any original ideas or theories on it. I think Dan LeClaire is, it's an interesting prospect to put forward. I think there's some good information there, but again, I think it needs to be like decoded and reinterpreted and reinterpreted. And then I don't know, really, what do you have once you've done all of that? Do you even have facts anymore? You just have sort of your own interpretation that's just a drop in the bucket.
Do you think Clara was a real person?
I do. I think, well, yeah, I mean, if I had to bet my life on it, probably not, but I think it's possible. Like there's something there. There's something there. I don't know. I'm somewhat undecided about it still.
I don't know what I think about that book either. There are some people who have a lot of thoughts about it and think that Clara and Dan LeClaire and Max Gunther are onto something and telling the truth. And then there are a lot of people who completely discount it. But what bugs me is when someone says, "Oh, that book's garbage, it's rubbish." And I'm like, "Oh, have you read it?"
Yeah.
No. That bugs me about everything. Oh, I'm not going to read that. It's trash. How do you know if you haven't read it?
You know what? I was almost in that camp, I will say, when I saw the reviews for it on Amazon. So I was like, oh, should I bother? Should I, invest in this book? Because it's quite pricey. There's not a lot in circulation right now. So when I saw the reviews, I was kind of like, I don't think I need this, to further my investigation. But when I kind of heard a few more people that their opinion kind of meant a lot more to me. Again, like Marty Andrade, to name just a few, probably the most prominent one. I was like, okay, you know what? I should give this a whirl and, at least come to my own opinion of it instead of just listening to some Amazon reviews that are trashing it.
I'm curious now. I can't believe there are Amazon reviews for a book that hasn't been published since Amazon was created.
I know, right? Yeah. They're good. You should read them. There's a lot of positive reviews for it too. The negative ones, of course, I was like, okay, give me the scoop here. What's the goss? Why does this book suck?
Oh my gosh, it's $67.
Yeah.
Okay, Tessa, here's how stupid I am. When I started this show and I started talking about all these obscure books, they were like $3 a piece.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
I wish I would have bought stacks and stacks of these books. I was going to buy a copy of the McCoy book the other day for a friend, and I went online and it was like $55. DB Cooper, What Really Happened is $67.
Yeah. And that's actually, I think that's even cheaper than what I saw it go for. I want to say like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, I saw it like over $100. Maybe that was like with a Canadian conversion, but
44 people have reviewed it and 19 people wrote something about it. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Ha 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 book. I mean, if you have a stack of those, you're rich.
Maybe, maybe if you sell them right now, but
Mhm.
I have seen with my own eyes many, many, many copies of that book.
Mhm.
And why is it valuable? That's the thing that gets me about the Ha Ha book.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it's purely the scarcity. It's not. I can't be the quality of the of the writing, or what's in it. It can't be right. Like that would be crazy.
Even
It's
if
just the scarcity.
there are Cooper books that are more rare than Ha Ha Ha, I believe. I just
Mm.
think it's that
Oh, it's the
there's a
fanatics. It's the
there's
yeah,
definitely that element to it that made it real
yeah,
popular recently.
yeah. The Forest Fen, who I don't know a lot about, so I'm not going to trash that. Not going to trash that suspect, but I think that they're probably driving up the price of the Ha 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 book.
Right, but Forrest Fenn didn't write it.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is there was like a lot of Forrest Fenn talk, and then all of a sudden everyone's asking for the Ha 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 book, and now people are slanging them on like the DB Cooper black market.
Yeah, it's not Forrest Fenn that wrote that. It was written by a
Mhm.
guy named Rod Addix. And you can go to, I
Mm.
think the website is plagueofjustice.com. Let's see here. Yeah, it's plagueofjustice.com. And
Oh.
then you can read basically the entire story of who wrote Ha 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 on there.
Oh,
And
okay.
it was written by this guy who conspired with a couple other dudes to kill a crippled man, and they actually beat him to death with his own crutches, which, boy, is that a dark
This is
a dark way to go out.
wow, what an uplifting,
Yeah, and
amazing
then
story. My
when he
heart is
gets
so full now.
when he gets arrested, or during the investigation I should say,
Mhm.
they find this document on his desk at work, and it's just titled DB Cooper, and they pick it up, and it's like a beginning rough draft of some sort of DB Cooper story.
Oh, wow.
And he was
Okay.
actually investigated as a suspect for like 10 seconds because of that. But they're like, oh, okay, obviously it's not this guy. But then he goes to jail
Wow.
for that murder and some arson and some other fraud stuff. And
Wait, so
then
this is
while
all true? Like this
this,
actually happened?
yes.
This is oh my God.
And then while he's in jail, he authors this book, Ha 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 by DB Cooper,
Oh.
using money that he raised working as a jailhouse lawyer. I mean, this whole story is so crazy on
This
so many
is
levels.
this is wild. I also feel like it's answering my question as to like why this book is maybe so sought after because this is actually a pretty crazy story in itself.
Oh, yeah, but that book you could get that's way
Mhm.
more interesting, Plague of Justice by Stan
Yeah.
Terrell. It's written by the son of the man Rod Addix killed.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
it talks about the whole story. Even it goes into the publishing of the book. So
Huh.
he married a gal while he was in prison, which, that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so she helps him get this book published on the outside. And the
Okay.
publishing company and the printing company get into a dispute over payment. And then the printing company was written a letter by DB Cooper that said, hey, because of the errors in the printing and the fact that I'm not happy with the quality of the books, I've decided not to pay you, DB Cooper. So then they had actually printed a bunch of books that they couldn't really sell or use or do anything with. And so that's
Oh.
why, I've seen 2 boxes full of those books.
Wow.
And
Crazy. What
yeah,
a
it,
story.
it is
Jeez.
an insane story. But yeah, I would get Plague of Justice by Stan Terrell. And he should be coming on
Okay.
the show pretty soon. I spoke to him on the phone last week, and
Oh,
it's a
very cool.
it's a really good book. I also figured out how to get your iPhone to read you a Kindle book. And I feel like a genius for
Oh.
figuring that out, because I read a lot of weird, obscure books, and
Yeah.
there's never an audiobook. Like Seth Rogen's new book. Oh, yeah, there was an audio version of that to go along with it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But Stan Terrell's self-published Plague of Justice from 1997, no, there was no audiobook for that. But
wow. So you can get your iPhone, you get Siri to read it to you.
it's not Siri. I don't.
Okay.
It's if you go into now we're getting real deep into it.
Yeah.
You go like into accessibility in your settings,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's like this swipe to read. And then if you go onto your Kindle, and then you have to turn off auto scrolling. I learned because it doesn't work that way. And then you just scroll down with 2 fingers at the top of the page.
Yeah.
Your phone will just start reading it to you, but your screen has to remain on.
Okay.
Which is kind of a drag, but.
Right. Yeah. You just got to have that puppy plugged in the whole time, basically, so it doesn't run out of juice, I guess.
I guess so. Do you have any helpful cell phone tips for people?
Low power mode all the time, 24/7, low power mode. Save that battery life.
So what really got you to the point where you couldn't put this case down?
I think when I found the volume of suspects, and it was actually just really cool to me to read about all these people's lives. Like all the Cooper suspects, for the most part, like sort of the most prominent ones, I would say, like your Dwayne Webbers and Richard McCoy, all these people, they had really interesting lives just on their own. Never mind the fact that, they're claiming or are suspected to be this hijacker who's, got away with, one of the most amazing, I use that in whatever context. He was a criminal. Okay. But he got away with this like pretty incredible crime. He pulled off this amazing feat. So to think that any one of these people could be this guy, I mean, that just kind of kept me sucked in. Okay, I have to get to the next person and the next person and the next person. And then trying to build out the suspect profile for who DB Cooper really was. That's what just keeps me stuck, I think, is who was this person? Who was he? What was he doing 2 weeks before the hijacking? What was his life like? Was he a single guy? Did he have a family? Did he have a wife? Was he divorced? Was he like a total loner, like guy who lived in the woods in a shack and just was like, screw this. This is, did he have a terminal illness? Like, what was this guy's deal? That is what I'm more interested in, who he was beforehand than like almost any other aspect of this case. I don't really care what he did after. I do think he survived, but I want to know who he was the morning of November 24th, 1971, who he was 2 weeks before that, or even before that. So
we obviously don't know this, so we would just be speculating, but what was his motivation? Do you think it was just cash?
So I really go back and forth on this. The fact that he was reported as being kind of giddy when they brought the money on that pulls me back into the camp of like, he needed the money for something. There wasn't any sort of altruistic or other kind of like, bigger conspiracy at play. Like he was just a dude who was hard up, needed the money. But I almost like, that's almost not good enough for me. Like, I don't want to just think that, he just did that. I mean, $200,000 back then, of course, was like a 1.2 million. So it was a lot of money. Right. But I'm trying to find that bigger, more like noble purpose, but I don't know if it exists. I kind of am more in the camp that it probably doesn't. I just need to like resign to the fact that he was a dude that needed cash. And that was, I guess, the easiest way for him to do it.
Yeah, I definitely lean towards the motivation being cash. I mean, it's possible that there was something else, maybe, the grudge. He wanted to stick it to the man. He wanted to get against that specific, maybe against the FBI. He says he doesn't have a grudge against that airline. Maybe it's aviation in general. I don't know. Yeah. But who did he really get by doing this? The insurance company and the airline paid that money. So who did he really stick it to?
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, I think back, okay, like try to put myself in this guy's shoes, right? Which is really hard to do because I would never do this. But I've like rage quit jobs before and like done like stupid things on my way out, like Jerry Maguire styles kind of, like, okay, I'm taking this goldfish with me and I don't care. Like no one, like nobody really, okay, Tessa, see ya. But like sometimes if you're pissed off at your employer or something, like, yeah, I don't know, you're just going to prove, it's more like proving to whoever rejected you or took something from you, took your livelihood, and I'm of course like leaning more towards that he was like a Boeing employee that was disgruntled because he got a pink slip and then, was kind of left with all these loose ends to tie up, maybe financially and whatnot. But yeah, like maybe he was just like, no, I got to prove this to myself. I got to prove this to you guys that I'm worth something, that I am someone you should give a damn about. Or even, like if he had one of those, stereotypical wives who was always telling him that, oh, you're no good, you can't provide for this family. And he was like, oh yeah, all right, let's do this. Let's roll. So.
Oh, I like that motivation. He had to stick it to his wife to get the 200 grand.
The least popular theory.
It could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is the flight path accurate?
So when I went to CooperCon, a few of us did like a tour through the FBI drop zone. And I was kind of more subscribing before to the Western flight path that Eric Ulis has coined and has a lot of really good, points and theories just surrounding that and how he's mapped that out and his reasons behind it. But when I went through the drop zone myself, it gave me like, I'd never been really to that area of Washington State before, and Oregon and all that. So I kind of like got a better lay of the land, and it kind of made me think like, you know what? The FBI flight path might actually work. It just really depends, I guess, on what you think he did after he landed. If you think he landed, of course. If you think that he like went quite quickly to Tina Bar and, buried the money there, then yeah, you got to work with the Western flight path. If you think that maybe he hung out in the woods for a little bit, he had some other kind of plan B, whether it was someone else on the ground helping him, then there's really no reason to, in my opinion, to think that the FBI flight path is off.
I'm so tired of debating the flight path.
Right?
Like, I was talking to Eric at CooperCon, and it's like, why does that matter?
Why does it matter? Yes. Okay.
We don't have evidence for it being on the Western flight path.
Mm-hmm.
We have the flight path that the Air Force and Northwest Orient put together for the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to go with that as being right.
I think it matters when it comes much further down the line to the debate about how the money got to Tina Bar. I think that's my take on why it matters. Now there's quite a bit, like there's quite a big delta in between those two things, those two like events. But yeah, I mean, it does, like you can live your life, Darren, and not care which flight path it is. That's okay, buddy. Like I was there.
So is the drop zone accurate would be the next question.
Yeah. So why haven't they found anything? Like with all the people that have been through that area, both like, around the time of the actual event and then in the, months and years afterwards, why didn't they find anything? So then you can go back to, okay, well, the drop zone and the flight path is probably wrong.
So now they're both wrong.
I don't know. Yeah, it's possible. Why haven't we found anything? But I mean, it's a really, really, really dense wooded area. Like, I mean, it's not Alaska. I do want people to kind of get that out of their head, that he like jumped in like the middle of nowhere. There was no civilization anywhere nearby. And it was this frozen tundra. Okay. Like it's the Pacific Northwest. So slow your roll. It's not that cold. Like even that night was not that crazy. But it is remote. That's one thing that I was like, when we're driving through these like windy streets, where we went kind of close to where the Amboy chute was found. We couldn't get onto that property because the property owner had passed away, and we couldn't get in touch with relatives, blah, blah, blah. But we kind of went in the area. And one thing that really struck us was that, like you're driving down pretty much like just a two-way road with the ditches on either side. When we were there, we drove for like about 4 or 5 hours through the whole area. We didn't see anyone like walking on the street. Like it's just not somewhere that, unless you have a car, you're not traveling these roads. So if there were people that were driving around that night, and they didn't report, or it wasn't recorded anyone being sort of seen on those roads, that would have really stuck out. I can say that from actually driving through the area myself.
There was a report of some gal, I want to say she was like 19, coming home from work, said she saw someone walking on Lewis River Road, which is the road that runs parallel to the Lewis River,
right,
on the north side. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's one of those, you heard about DB Cooper a few days later, and then you're like, I think I might have saw someone that night.
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot of those that pop up even now, like as I am doing research, or there was a YouTube video, I think it was on Dan Greider's channel, and there's a guy who commented that, that night I heard about the hijacking as I was driving home from, I think he was in university, and he went on his radio and intercepted the pilots talking to like the air traffic control, and he kind of was leaning towards that Bradachek never actually said, at this time we think that, like our friend took leave of us. Like that wasn't actually recorded anywhere. So we don't actually know even when that pressure bump occurred. But this guy's saying this like pretty far after the fact. I don't know if he ever reported this anywhere else other than a YouTube comment. But I'm trying to get in touch with him now and talk to him in the new year and be like, okay, like what happened here? What evidence do you have? Like, he said that he brought it to the attention of a radio station. Okay. Like, is there any way to backtrack on a lot of these claims that, otherwise it's just something that someone might be saying in hindsight for whatever reason. They want to be part of the story. They want people to believe that they had any part of it or they know something. So it just adds to everything that's swirling around the vortex.
Yeah, that comment, I think our friend is no longer with us. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things, I feel like somebody said that, and then it just got repeated. And no one can find sort of the origin of that. Can that be backed up? But that's something we've all been saying for 7 years now.
Yeah, well, Radachek did say it in the HBO documentary. He did say that himself, that this is like, he even did the whole, like, holding the little pretend, microphone up to his mouth and being like, our friend just took leave of us. So he said it himself, at least on camera, in that recent documentary. But I don't know, maybe he's even not sure if that's exactly what he said at this point, right? It's been 50 years.
We should start a new one. Like, it was a fact that DB Cooper loved strawberry Fanta. A fact.
Is Fanta even around in 71, man? Oh,
that's a good point.
Abraham Lincoln quotes on Facebook.
Yes. Yes. All right. Do you believe he survived the jump?
Yeah, I do. 100%.
What leads you to that?
I think that he knew what he was doing enough. And he got like, this is like all right, this is not my favorite point, but it's just what came into my head right now. But man, the guy got lucky on a lot of things that day. Why wouldn't he get lucky and survive the jump too? That's the worst. That's the worst argument. I can hear myself. But no, I think he had the know-how to survive, to do the jump, I think he knew what he was doing. Maybe he wasn't like an expert jumper, but I think he knew what he was doing. I don't think the conditions that night were so horrible that, like that would have caused him to, die of hypothermia. I don't think he landed in the water and that got him. I think we would have probably found a parachute or something if it did happen that way. But yeah, no, I 100% think that he lived. And I also do think the money fine supports that.
I grew up in Woodland, Washington, and you live just outside Vancouver, BC.
Mm-hmm.
So the weather is pretty similar in those two places.
Totally.
When you hear about this story and people say it was a storm,
Yeah.
no, it's not a storm. It was raining.
Yeah.
And you and
Exactly.
it's
Thank you.
raining just means that water is falling from the sky, not necessarily a storm.
Yeah.
And rain is something that happens, 60% of the days of the year. So
Yep, absolutely.
no big deal. And not an area that doesn't really get real heavy storms.
Totally. Yeah, not at all.
And the hypothermia thing, November, yeah, it's cold, yeah, it's wet, but the people who live there are going outside in shorts and a poncho. Like it's not freezing and rigid or anything like that.
Oh yeah. No, I went camping when I was like 16 by like a river in a very densely wood. Like this was like serious outdoor survivalist camping, super unprepared for what I was signing up for. And we did a night, it was Boxing Day, so dead of winter. And like I was uncomfortable, but like I wasn't wearing I was wearing like jeans, like a winter jacket, nothing crazy. And I was fine. I was frozen, like I was very cold, but I survived. So, and I was there for like almost 24 hours. So Cooper could have done it.
Was his bomb real?
I don't think it was. I have been leaning more towards that they were like road flares or something that he could sort of recycle, reuse for later.
Why did he take it with him?
Because he needed to use, well, I mean, for one thing, the attache case is like another storage facility for whatever he needed to carry. I think he probably had more supplies or something in there maybe than what Tina Mucklow saw. But I think, I mean, number one, I don't think he wanted to leave any evidence behind if he could help it. I think the tie was left, by accident. But yeah, I think he had other things maybe in there that were for later use. And yeah, I don't think the bomb was real.
I don't think the bomb was real either. The only thing I wonder is, did he take the attaché case with him or did he throw it out the back of the plane?
Yeah. So that, I think that comes down to a matter of practicality. Like he had his hands quite full. So I could see him tossing it if need be, like if he's like, okay, this is way more than what I had planned to jump with. If he thought that, he's going to have the money in a bag that, wasn't the bag that they ended up giving him. But yeah, he could have tossed it. I would like to think that we would have found that as well. And I don't know the logistics of how, like, I mean, none of us know, of course, but I don't know what the logistics would have been like of him, like holding on to that briefcase while jumping. Again, like his hands were very, very full. So I don't know if whatever he had in there. And another reason I don't think it was a real bomb, because I just don't think that that's in his character. I don't think he intended to hurt or kill anybody that night. If it, like under any circumstance, I don't think that fits his character profile. But yeah, I don't know if he chucked it or if he was able to somehow to strap it on and take him with him.
There's reports he had either like a cloth sack or a brown paper bag with him also. What do you think was in there?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think about that a lot. It could be, so I want to think that it was either like something he could wear, because he didn't really jump with probably the right gear for that kind of endeavor. Maybe it was a radio. If you want to subscribe to the accomplice theory, that would be a great idea. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know, some sort of like, outdoor wilderness survival stuff like flashlights, something to like keep warm or start a fire with. If he thought like, okay, I might be, wherever I land, I might be stuck out here for more time than I really care to be. So, something that's going to make sure he gets through the night.
I always imagined it would be gloves and goggles.
Yeah.
But then I was talking to this parachutist 3 or 4 months ago, and he was like, bro, you could put those in your pocket. And
yeah,
like,
for sure.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So now I have no idea what he would have put in there.
Yeah, maybe it was the lunch from his wife who thought nothing of him. It's a snack for later.
Do you think the fact that they released one sketch, the Bing Crosby sketch, and then got nowhere with it, so they redid it and then released the Cary Grant sketch, what do you think that did to the case?
Oof. Too many suspects. Too many uncles and grandfathers and brothers and dads. Yeah, I mean, the sketches are a big problem for me. I think that the people who they asked didn't get, besides Tina Mucklow and Bill Mitchell, they got, I think, about five other passengers. I could be wrong, but it might be like 7 or something, but they got people who didn't really get, I think, a close enough, long enough look at what this guy really looked like. And all of that was kind of compiled together. And like, first, also, like, I mean, it's not a photograph, it's a sketch. I have looked up police sketches that have led to arrests, and very, very, very seldom would I connect the drawing with the person who actually committed the crime. Like, I am amazed that this like is a helpful tool in bringing people to justice. So I am hard pressed to think that the sketches are very useful at all. But then having one sketch that looks like one person and one sketch that looks like pretty much a completely different person, and then having, like Tina Mucklow and I don't know if Bill Mitchell, what he really thought of the sketches, but Florence Schaffner both saying like, no, not really. Like, neither of the sketches, like one is too handsome and like one didn't really look like him enough or at all. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have like the direct quotes in front of me, but I don't think the sketches were helpful at all. And I think it was maybe like a detriment to the case.
I agree. And I think it really goes to show you the fact that the passengers didn't know they're being hijacked because none of them bothered to pay attention to that person on the plane.
Yep.
In so much as one person described the suit he was wearing as russet brown, possibly velour with wide lapels.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so outside of everything else that do you even know who you're talking about?
Yeah. That was one of my favorite parts actually in Skyjack, was reading, and Jeffrey Gray, like, kind of, he put it together in the book like so well, where when you're reading it, it's almost spliced like a movie where you're seeing one witness come in after the other. And he was 35. There was no way he was older than 40. Oh, he was 55. Oh, he had brown hair. He had black hair. He had like this skin. He had that skin. And it's just like, oh my God, of course, like these sketches are going to be the product of like these like really muddy waters that you're trying to kind of like sift through to get a really clear understanding of what this guy looked like.
Oh yeah. And it really annoys me when people will come on either the Facebook group or one of the forums or send me an email and say, hey, has Tina seen this picture of this guy?
Yes.
Oh my
God. Yeah.
It was 50 years ago. And the fact that she's had so many pictures put in front of her face.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way she could identify him. And she's even come forward and said that, as has Bill Mitchell.
Yeah.
But it just keeps coming up like, oh, if she saw my suspect, she'd know right away.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, sometimes I think back like, okay, could I describe my grade 1 teacher? Could I describe her, and I saw her every day for, like a whole year of my life? Could I, or even, I don't know, a high school teacher, something more recent, could I describe them to a sketch artist and actually believe that what I tell them, what his or her nose looked like, what the length of their chin, was it rounded, did she have high cheekbones, was it sunken in, like, do I trust myself to recall that? And now you're asking someone who was on the plane, who didn't really even maybe you went to the bathroom a couple times and you saw the guy in the back row. Now, tell me what he looked like. Like, no, that's not going to work,
Oh yeah. Or even better, how about this? Tessa, I'm going to show you 10 pictures of women today. Which one was your first grade teacher?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't watch her age.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't like when people lead with my suspect looks like one of the sketches. Then I'm kind of already like halfway out the door.
yeah, I bring it up all the time. Most men in 71 looked very similar.
Yeah.
Even with the suspects, a lot of the suspects do look pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that drives me a little crazy is you have suspects that have specific features that really stand out. Like Dwayne Weber and Richard McCoy have
Yep.
big Dumbo ears.
Yep. Yep.
And if you're going to describe someone and they have one very specific thing, that's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing you say.
Yep.
I don't remember what color his eyes were, but he had big ears.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And I mean, even with uh with Dwayne Weber, he had really distinct features, in my opinion. Like he had a pretty wide nose at the end. He had kind of a crooked mouth. He had like a low brow. Like I don't know, if I had a good look at somebody, like I would be able to describe those features, or I would at least know like, okay, it was not this guy for sure. So sometimes I don't know why we still have suspects that are in the running, because like you said, they have very distinguishable features.
Let's get into some suspects.
Okay, let's do
Actually,
it.
before we do that, you're Canadian.
Yes.
Why are there no Canadian suspects? Everyone says, oh, maybe he was Canadian because he used the word knapsack and the Dan Cooper comic connection.
Did he say knapsack? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, he asked for the money to be delivered in a knapsack.
And that's considered to be Canadian? You guys don't say knapsack in in America?
No, I rarely
Hmm.
ever hear the term knapsack.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard that before. Okay. Wait, isn't William Gossett? He's Canadian, isn't he?
Wolfgang
I know he
Gossett?
like, yeah, or yeah, sorry, yeah.
Well, he was born William and then changed his name to Wolfgang at some point, but
Okay, right. But he wasn't he Canadian? I know he like lived in Canada
he
for some period of his life.
I'll have to double check on that. I think he did. I know he had a safety deposit box in Vancouver, BC, but
Okay,
he
yeah.
lived in Salt Lake and in the Oregon coast.
Okay, because I thought that he was the only Canadian suspect, but I'm not like I don't want to state that he was actually from Canada, but I do know, yeah, he lived here at some point. But yeah, why aren't there any Canadian suspects? Um, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the he was from Canada thing, because well, if especially if you're trying to connect it to the Dan Cooper comic, because that was so obscure. I really can't stress this enough when I talk to Americans. Um, like if someone in like Quebec, the province of Quebec, if they had access to this Dan Cooper comic and they got on the plane that day, they would have the most noticeable French Canadian accent. There's no way that it is slipping by. I have to tell you, like, okay, it's possible that they were from Canada, like that Cooper was from Canada and he spoke French and he read this comic and was like, I'm going to call myself Dan Cooper. Like, it's possible. I really don't think it's likely. And anyone listening to this, if you're like, hey, this girl kind of sounds like she's from Minnesota, it's because I'm from Canada and like we do have a different dialect. So it's it's not maybe as noticeable as others, but I kind of trust that Tina Mucklow, she was with him for what, like 4 hours in total,
Yeah.
like something like that, that she would have picked up on something unless he spent like a ton of time in the States. And he, kind of adapted a little bit more to the American dialect. But like I took acting courses and like I was trying to, try my hand as an actor at one point, and I had to take standard American dialect lessons. And let me tell you, it was one of the hardest out of all the dialects for me to adapt to. And I take kind of a little bit more naturally to different languages or picking up on nuances of other languages and dialects. But American, just being able to speak American with no discernible accent is really difficult. So I don't think, kind of for those reasons, I don't think he was Canadian. I'm not saying it was impossible. So I won't die on that hill, but I do think he was American.
How do you like Wolfgang as a suspect?
I think he's interesting. I don't. Did he. I don't know if you know, but did he admit to being Cooper or like claim to be Cooper at any point?
Yep, he confessed to both of his sons either on their 18th or
Okay.
21st birthdays.
What a
And then
nice gift.
he also confessed to two different lawyers, gave written statements.
Okay, see that for me is a disqualifier. As soon as you put your hand up and do the I'm Spartacus thing, now you're out. You're not Cooper. You want to be. We all do, most of us. So yeah, no, that's a disqualifier for me. He's an interesting, he's got some of the right qualities or capabilities. I think he was also a little bit too young though, right?
He was on the younger side. I want to say he would have been like 43 or
Okay.
42. So
Mm-hmm.
not like 28 or 27.
Not Robert Rackstraw young.
What do you think of Rackstraw?
Oh, Rackstraw. That's a terrible suspect.
Why is Rackstraw
Yeah.
a terrible suspect?
Okay, so for me, like number one, the age discrepancy. I don't think that Bill Mitchell would have called Robert Rackstraw like a geeky old guy sitting across from him. And I don't think that Tina Mucklow, being 6 years his junior, would have also described him as being like, in his late 40s, early 50s or something like that. That's like, unless the guy was just rapid, like Benjamin Button aging, like that's just like not a thing that I think is within the realm of possibility. Um, Also, I don't from what I've heard and read, whatever about from people that knew Rackstraw and from what I've read about him, I don't think that he could have gone on that flight and like not hit on Tina at some point, not been probably like a little bit crude or vulgar at any point. I like from what I've heard about the guy, like it was just he had a different MO.
It sure seems like it.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why that suspect is still being pushed.
I think it's that stupid code letter that people are like, that letter that was sent into the FBI and people have decoded it. And it says like, I'm DB Cooper, but there's like a Robert Rackstraw like tie in if you decode it a certain way, which again, like, so what maybe Rackstraw did send that into the FBI and did claim to be DB Cooper. That doesn't make him DB Cooper because he sent a coded letter.
Doug Perry at the Oregonian actually took the work of the code breakers, or is it case breakers? Took the work of the case breakers and sent it to legit code breakers and cryptologists. And they said the methods they use to do this are nonsense. According to that method, I can make it say, I am SpongeBob, and gave an example of how to do that.
That doesn't surprise me. Those guys are not legit.
No,
Sorry,
the way that
legit, Tom. Go home, man.
It boggles my mind that's still being out there and pushed.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? Like honest to God, like I have thrown theories out there. I mean, like there's no hill that I'll die on, like you can't with a case like this. You can't be so planting your flag and digging your heels in about suspects, like especially ones like that have like really clear sort of like disqualifiers in my opinion, like age and character profile. So, it'd be cool if it was somebody like Rackstraw. He's like such a renegade and had a really interesting military career. And yeah, worked for the CIA, I guess, at one point or something like that. Like, sure, he'd be an interesting suspect, or he is an interesting suspect until you kind of like scratch the surface a tiny bit more. And then you realize like, nah. So
how do you like Barb Dayton as a suspect?
So I have to separate like my love for Barb Dayton. Like I really just, for so many reasons, I think like her life was so interesting and amazing. Like even just like really little things from her childhood, that when she was growing up, her younger brother was like better looking and taller than she was. So she learned how to walk on stilts to like be able to kind of compete, like, which I think is just kind of just like, this is an interesting person here, and I also think that's when people say like, oh, it couldn't be Barb Dayton because, she's way too short. I'm like, well, she didn't know how to walk on stilts. I'm not saying it was Barb Dayton. Calm down. But, there's a lot of things that I think make her a really compelling suspect. But there's even like another good thing for Barb Dayton's favor is that there is a grudge. There's a lot of grudges there. There's a lot of, she needed money. She had been, she kind of lost her dreams of being able to work in the Air Force, or like being I forget what kind of.
Like she wanted to be a commercial pilot, but her
she wanted to be a
vision
commercial pilot. Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
up
that's
to
right.
par.
So yeah, it wasn't up to par. So that's like there's a lot of good sort of meat there to chew through as to like the why, and that's one of the reasons why I like Barb a lot, because a lot of the quite a few of the suspects we can place them there. We can give them they've got the skills or whatnot, but the why isn't as clear. But for Barb, we've got like a lot of the whys to me are super, super checked off, but a lot of the other things, no.
When people ask me who I think DB Cooper was, I say, I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if I got to choose one of the available suspects, I would choose Barb Dayton.
Oh, you would?
Oh yeah.
Hey,
because
that makes me happy.
of all of the available suspects, the DB Cooper case is crazy. But if it turns out that Barb Dayton was DB Cooper, now the story just became insane.
Yeah, totally.
Cooper was a trans woman. I mean, what is a more Portland story than that?
Oh my God, totally. Totally. Yeah, no, I really loved that. For a while, I will say I was like kind of leading with that. And I just hated how people were so quick to discount her just for the fact that, that she was a trans woman, that, oh, that's preposterous. I'm like, okay, well, no, it's not. Like, learn a little bit more about who this individual was and then come back to me and look me in the eye and say that. But that made me kind of want to be in her corner a little bit more. But ultimately, no, I don't think that it was her. And again, for one of the reasons, it's the fact that she confessed to the formants. That is that for me, that's a huge disqualifier.
Confession is a disqualifier. Okay, how about this confession? Kenny Christensen tried to give a confession on his deathbed, but his brother stopped him and then assumed he was trying to confess to being Cooper. Is Kenny Christensen DB Cooper?
No. But for reasons other than that, I don't think he fits.
Why not?
Like, so he worked on the airline, he had knowledge of the planes, probably 727s. I don't think that there was enough of he was gainfully employed. Why would he threaten his employment by doing something like that? Like, if you can give me kind of like a good enough reason, okay, I'll consider him a little bit more. I think that someone would have recognized him at the airport or at some point. Like, the airline industry at that time must have been kind of like a pretty tight network. Maybe I'm wrong about that. This is just completely an assumption. I do feel like that would be a really, really, really risky move. Like, and I also think that Cooper was not the type to to use kind of a vulgar term, like he wasn't the type to shit where he eats. So I don't think that it would have been that close to home. And then people like to say, oh, that money that was found, I think like in an attic or something. Or was it, might be confusing him with McCoy, who stuffed his cash in an attic.
I don't think there was money found. There was like a hidey hole found.
Right.
In
Okay.
his attic.
And he bought a house shortly after the hijacking. Is that right?
Yeah. And that story has been sort of chewed apart because originally it was, he bought this house in cash, was the story going around. Mm-hmm. And then you have sort of these DB Cooper sleuths online that dug into it and were like, actually, no, he held a note on the house, right? And had a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. So I think his brother wanted him to be Cooper. And I question if that whole deathbed conversation took place, because it was his brother that wanted to contact the woman who wrote
Nora
Sleepless in-
Ephron.
Yeah, that's right. And like, I don't know. It's just a little suspect for me.
Yeah, working there for years after that, I really struggle with the idea
Yeah.
that you're going to commit a crime against Northwest Orient Airlines where you work,
Yeah.
and then you're going to continue to work there.
Yeah. That doesn't make
That's
any sense.
and Cooper also had to be shown how to lower the aft stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew somehow that you could jump from the aft stairs, but
Yeah.
he didn't know how to lower them.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Kenny Christensen had the opposite knowledge, how to
Yeah.
lower them, but not if the plane could fly with them down or if it could be jumped.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's things that even the pilots didn't know. So how would Kenny Christensen know that? But then, yeah, like you said, not know how to open that, lower the air stairs.
How about James Klansnick?
So I think Klansnick is a great candidate. From when I first saw Nicholas Broughton's Facebook Live with Eric Eulis, I was like, oh, wow, this is like a really compelling suspect. Checks off a ton of boxes. But I know Nikki's going to hate hearing this because it's the one thing that I think everyone probably says, is the why. Where's the motive? Right? The guy seemed to already kind of have a pretty comfortable, good life, and then went on to still live a comfortable, good life. He did make some like interesting investments in his later years, like was one of the first investors of some like fancy ski resort. So like that's interesting. I think he has some family members that, again, after the fact and after people have probably like fed them this like, hey, what if your, uncle or someone or cousin was like this amazing, like unsolved hijacking guy? They've been like, oh yeah, I could see that it was him. So I think he's interesting, but I need a little more before James Klansnick kind of rises a little bit higher on the list for me. I do like that he never confessed. He was like the right age. He had he worked at Boeing, so he would have had the knowledge. He can explain the tie particles most likely. I don't know a ton about what his specific role was at Boeing, but he has a lot of what we should be looking for and what we should expect from the ultimate Cooper suspect.
Well said. How about Ted Braden?
Okay, I know nothing about Ted Braden. So
you're missing out.
I know, yeah, and there's been so much more buzz. Like I've gone really, like, I want to say almost 6 months of not hearing that name ever, and now it's like every second or third Facebook post is about Ted Braden. So I am very excited actually to learn a lot more about him. I think from what I'm like hearing, there's some questions, like pointed questions about his professional career and how that fits into who Cooper was and why he was wearing, like, who this guy was that was wearing this like executive kind of looking business suit, that isn't really like a perfect match or really obvious. But it sounds like he definitely has a lot of the other capabilities that we would require from a Cooper suspect, from like a very, very capable Cooper. Maybe overqualified, but again, I don't know. I'm kind of really, just shooting off here because I haven't done my research.
Ted Braden's a great suspect. I think the only thing that people look down on, pun intended, is Braden's a short dude like myself. I want to say he's 5'7" or 5'8". So
okay,
that sort of puts him a little outside of the conventional physical description. But again, most of the time he was seated on a plane.
Yep.
But I would, looking for a title over there, Paratrooper of Fortune by Drew Beeson.
Right. Yeah.
Great book. I'd highly recommend that. And I like it a lot too because it's one of the newer books. So when you're reading Max Gunther's book, no one had the internet when that book came out.
Yep.
So a lot of time has gone by between Max Gunther and Drew Beeson's books. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, it's on my list once I finish the books that I've got going right now.
What do you think of Sheridan Peterson?
Oh, oh, heartbreaking, heartbreaking. Okay, so one of my first sort of instincts when I was getting a little bit deeper and deeper into the vortex and putting together a profile was I was pretty much convinced, okay, this guy definitely, like Cooper, definitely worked at Boeing, but what role might he have had? Because the whole thing with the air stairs was really like a big sticking point for me. And I had actually dated a technical writer at Boeing at one point, and I had a pretty good sense of like what a day in the life of a technical writer is, right? Like you sit with subject matter experts day after day after day after day. You get a really good understanding, like really, really clear, in-depth understanding of like how things are supposed to work. Even like sometimes deeper, depending on what your role is exactly, a really good technical understanding of them. But do you actually do it yourself? No. So I was like, okay, this is a guy who had like this really clear, in-depth knowledge of the airplane. But when it came to actually doing something himself physically, he didn't have the muscle memory. So I was like, that to me sounds like a technical writer. So then I watched, but I hadn't heard of Sheridan Peterson or anything. And then I watched the Eric Eulis on History's Greatest Mysteries, and they brought Sheridan on, and I was like, there's no way it's this guy. Like, this is the most terrible suspect ever. Like, this guy's totally toying with them. He doesn't match, like, he's got blue eyes and this and that. And like, he was probably up to something, like he's a bit shifty, and, he's got that like mischievous twinkle in his eye. So I don't think he was like, Mr. Clean or anything, like in terms of what he was up to in the 70s. He was up to something, but I didn't really think that he was like a great suspect at first. But then when I read a lot more about him, I was like, oh my God, he's a technical writer at Boeing. He had this like, experience in the military, and like, he was a smoke jumper and this and that. I was like, okay, he is actually a great suspect. But for me, the disqualifier is actually not even, so I will break my rule here for Sheridan, not so much that he kind of was like teasing or almost admitting to it, but that he was not a smoker. I won't even say the blue eyes thing is a disqualifier, because Cooper was wearing sunglasses for so much of the flight. I do think it's possible that they got his eye color wrong. They probably didn't, but it's possible. But the fact that Sheridan Peterson was never reported as being a smoker at any point of his life, that's a disqualifier for me on Sheridan. But he is such a good suspect. That's why it breaks my heart.
Do you smoke cigarettes?
No.
Have you ever smoked cigarettes?
I tried. I was like, this looks like fun. Couldn't do it.
Yeah, I've probably smoked maybe 3 cigarettes in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
But when someone says, oh, he was just smoking to hide.
No chance.
No chance. I challenge all the non-smokers listening to this show right now. Mm-hmm. You have 5 hours. I'll give you 5 hours.
Yep.
You have to smoke 8 cigarettes.
Yeah.
And let me know how you're doing on number 3. Let me know how number 4 is going. Because I don't know if you're going to get to number 8 as a non-smoker pretending to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah. I agree, man. I agree 100%. It's no chance.
All right. Richard McCoy.
Ooh, another good one. Again, he had the skills. I like that he had a history of being like a war hero. He saved, did some crazy maneuvers and stuff when he was a pilot in the war. Saved a bunch of guys, helped them, I think, survive. I don't know if they were POWs for a period of time, but he had survival instincts and survival skills, not just for himself, but to actually save other people, and was a decorated hero because of it. So that's good. That works in his favor. And I mean, he did the he did it. He pulled it off himself, just happened to be a little bit too much of like a blabbermouth and, told the wrong person and got caught. So, that I think that's why Cooper has avoided us, because I don't think he told a soul. But McCoy's a good suspect. The McCoy stands, like, I get you. I don't think it was him. I don't think he did 2 jumps. That seems kind of crazy to me. But I guess it's possible, but I think it's highly unlikely. But yeah, when it comes down to the physical description, I think those ears would have been a dead giveaway.
What about the thought that the flight crew is in on it?
Man, don't even bring that my way. That's just some crazy talk. That's so wild. I have very little respect for that theory for so many reasons, mostly because it's just batshit crazy. It's just so, I don't know. I don't even know how to like intelligently like debate that argument. Like, it's just, to me, it's just so dumb. Do you want me to debate it?
No, I don't. It gets brought up so much. It's like, oh, I'm going to join the Stevie Cooper Facebook group. I have an idea.
Yeah.
I think the flight crew was in on it. Oh, what an amazing, fresh idea.
Yeah. No, it's so dumb. Sorry, I got nothing else. I can't dignify it further.
How about the fact that he hid on the plane, never jumped, and then just sort of walked away? Maybe while he's hiding in this magic secret compartment, he changed into a police uniform.
That would make a great movie. But in real life, I don't think that happened. I know they had dogs search the plane, and I trust dogs more than people in general. So in this case, that also applies. I think that, they had enough of his scent, probably like on the plane, that the dogs would have picked him up if he had been hiding somewhere else. There's that story of that, I think he was Cuban, that Cuban exile who hid in the wheel well of a plane on like a pretty long flight and survived. So, I mean, I guess it's possible that he snuck out even on the ground at some point. But there's that scene in Catch Me If You Can where Leonardo DiCaprio's character makes his like final escape, I think. And he like disassembles a toilet in the airplane lavatory and somehow escapes that way. And that was fabricated, for anyone who thinks that was real. That was not like, he didn't do that. Frank Abagnale. So I don't think there was really anywhere that Cooper could have hid on that plane and come up with a clever, disguise and pieced out. No, I'm not buying it.
What about Frank Abagnale as a suspect?
Oh, that'd be cute. I think he would have been, again, far too young.
Not my idea, by the way.
Has someone legitimately thought that?
Oh, yeah. I had many conversations with a gentleman who told me he was just going to keep working on it to get ready to come on the show with his theory.
Oh, bless his heart.
And then at a certain point, he just disappeared.
Yeah.
So
I mean, sure. Like, why don't we just find someone who's already done like a million amazing thing or like, crazy things and just tack that on, right? Why not? You're DB Cooper too on top of it. Like, that's just lazy in my opinion.
Well, there is that sort of, it's popular to just assume all of the unsolved crimes were committed by one person.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a couple of episodes on that. I covered Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers. Right. And I covered, what's his name? Ed Edwards. And both of those suspects committed all of the unsolved crimes in between 1960 and pretty much today, because Ed Edwards also got Teresa Hall back and JonBenet Ramsey.
Oh my goodness. See, that's just lazy investigating, in my opinion. Like, you have to stop yourself as an investigator sometimes and, just like, what are you doing? Look yourself in the mirror. Just maybe take a break, take a couple days off, get a reality check. It's just too much, it's too much. Like, how much does Beyonce get done in one day? Like, you're putting a lot on people,
How much does Beyonce get done in one day?
I mean, apparently a lot, if they make t-shirts about it.
I've never even heard of that before.
Oh, really? Yeah.
All right. Why do you think this is still unsolved?
I'm going to give Cooper all the credit for this one. I think he really planned this out. And I think the kind of person that he was, I really think he didn't tell anyone, which makes me also think that he was a bit of a loner, didn't really have anyone to tell. But I think he dropped out of his life, and then eventually, after probably a shorter amount of time than we really think or want to believe, that he just slipped right back into his life and didn't do anything, didn't buy a sports car, fur coat, didn't do the Goodfellas thing. He just kind of maybe slowly spent the cash. Maybe something happened and he didn't even get to spend all the cash. But I think he kept super quiet. And I think, like the time that this happened, 1971, like people want to fault the FBI for a lot of things, for not holding on to the evidence. Okay, it does sound like some things were mishandled or misinterpreted. But I don't think that, if they had DNA evidence back then, I don't think that this would be an unsolved mystery anymore. So I think it was kind of just, again, like he was really lucky. Everything really worked out, that this was going to be something that this individual was going to be able to get away with. Obviously he didn't plan it, to be that way, that, oh, good thing I'm doing this before DNA is invented. But it just worked out in his favor.
It certainly did. What do you think it'll take to solve this?
So if he did have a family that knew that he did this, I'm assuming that he would be, dead by now. And I think a family member or someone would need to come forward with some kind of like really substantial evidence, and something that we can maybe do some some sort of advances in DNA technology that we can kind of pull from the tie. Beyond that, I don't really know what else. And I'm kind of in the camp of, and I was happy at CooperCon, I found that I wasn't alone on this, but I'm kind of in the camp of people who are totally, totally good if this never gets solved. Because then, if the guy's name is like Kirk Smith, we're not going to have Kirk Smith conferences, it's going to be weird. So we're not going to have all these fun. You're not going to have a Kirk Smith Vortex. It'd be weird, Darren. So I'm kind of okay if this never gets solved. We got to keep the legend alive. And he's not a legend anymore once we find out who he is.
Yeah, that's funny. Changing the name of the Kirk Smith conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
doesn't have the same ring to it.
No, it definitely doesn't. Especially if it's about one dude who was a criminal, then it's
it's just we're not gonna have these super fun debates and discussions. Our group's gonna disband. And the mystery dies. And I don't know. I know it's not really cool to think of this as like a victimless crime. There were people that were legitimately affected by this. Pretty much primarily the flight crew and their families. And that's, that needs to be respected. But at the same time, you know what? At the end of the day, okay, nobody died, nobody got physically hurt. And it was kind of badass. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. Cooper's kind of a James Bond figure, which I really think is cool. And so then, we're not going to idolize him the same way after that, after he has an identity. And we find out that he was the sad guy whose wife, really just thought nothing of him. And keep coming back to that. That's that's not really how I'm characterizing him, but yeah.
Do you think the name Dan Cooper was an homage to the comic book?
No, I don't.
Really? Why is that?
I think the comic book was too obscure to get into his hands. I think if we were to somehow run the odds on that, it would be really sadly very, very, very low. I think it's really interesting. It's a super interesting coincidence, but given that it was a Belgian comic that was barely available, if really at all, unless it was brought over, it was not widely distributed in North America, maybe even besides Quebec. I don't think that it's very likely that it would have gotten into the hands of our DB Cooper. And the name Dan Cooper is just so plain and simple. Like if I were to do something like that, I would just pick like the most plain name ever. And I think that's what he did. I don't think that Dan Cooper was someone that he went to school with. I don't think it was like a name of an older brother that he would say like blame it on Dan. I think that's maybe a Wolfgang Gusset thing, but I don't think it was had any connection whatsoever. I think he just picked a name that would never ever ever be associated with him.
I don't like that answer because I want to believe that it's based on the comic book.
I know. There's a surprising amount of people that at CooperCon that were like ready to fight me on that. So it's not a popular opinion for me to think it's no connection.
I want there to be a connection, but do I believe there's one? I have no idea. It's not like there is any evidence to support that. And like you said, Dan as an American male's first name, pretty common. Cooper, the North American male last name, pretty common.
Yeah.
So totally. I see both sides of it. And you're right. Very obscure comic book, wasn't printed in English until many, many, many years later. And it's probably, the popularity now is probably pretty much based on DB Cooper.
Yeah, totally.
For this thing still running around. Why do you think so many people have confessed to this crime? I know you're not a big fan of confessions, but can you name another case where there's dozens of confessions?
I don't know if there probably are. I couldn't name one. But I'm guessing that this is a pretty common thing for people to confess. I think even the Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, I think there was even other people that were maybe confessing to that, which is extremely disturbing. But I mean, who wouldn't want to be DB Cooper? If I was like a white guy at the time, that like I would be like, yeah, fuck me, I'm DB Cooper too. Yeah, what's up? Like I use it as a pickup line at the bar. Are you insane? Like that's the best thing ever. Until like the FBI start breathing down your neck. But I think it's I don't know. I'm one of those people that's like everybody wants to be Cooper. He's a cool character.
All right. How'd the money end up on Tina Barr?
Ooh, I don't know. Headline. I don't know. Under that, I would say I probably think that it was buried there. I'm not someone who gets too into like the more it was planted for someone, but I don't know what it is. Lately, I've been kind of thinking like maybe it was just because it's such a weird, like random amount to have there. And like the more I think about it, like what kind of psycho would would bury like the loot that they just got off a plane at like some random beach? I wouldn't. I would bury it somewhere like that maybe wasn't so susceptible to like Mother Nature. That doesn't seem like a good plan. So like, yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't know. There's I've seen it written before and I've heard other people say it and I 100% believe it, even more so after CooperCon and after learning more about like the diatoms and hearing a bunch of really conflicting stories that all kind of have some sort of credibility to them. The money find is a whole mystery as big as DB Cooper itself. It's just so strange. I'm going to make my own podcast about the money find.
Are you?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I would listen to that.
It'd be wild. No, but that's like, it's so inexplicable.
It is. It only seems to add questions instead of provide any answers.
Yeah, 100%. It's maddening to me. And I've kind of stopped trying to wrap my head around it because that's a really, really speculative area to me where all we have are the diatoms and like, that's not my forte. So I can only go so far, like reading about that, thinking about that. And then the rest is just like, I don't know. There isn't anything else. Nothing else has been found in that area. There's no other like someone saw a guy like digging. Oh yeah, that was another thing that I thought that maybe could have been in the bag. Maybe a shovel if he was that kind of psycho who would just bury some money on like a beach. Doesn't seem like a great idea.
Yeah, who knows what
Yeah.
was in that bag? A
Yeah.
shovel seems like it would be a little clunky to jump with, though.
Like a little one, because, and I say that because there was a guy who was Canadian, who hijacked I think it was a DC-8 or DC-9, in, I think it was early 1971. And one of the things that he brought with him was a little hand shovel, like a little garden shovel. So he planned to bury the money. So maybe it's not, maybe that was like in vogue for hijackers at the time to like find an exotic place to bury your money, bring a shovel.
I forget that guy's name. I was trying to look it up, but I can't remember it. I get the
Yeah.
copycat skyjackers mixed up, although he wasn't a
Yeah.
copycat, but
Oh, Paul Cini.
Paul Cini. That's right.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
get Paul Cini and Glenn Tripp mixed up because
Mm.
they both did their skyjackings very poorly.
Yes. Yeah.
Cini, he was the one that got hit with the axe, right?
That's right. Yeah. He turned around, or he dropped his gun for like a second. And then the next thing he knew, one of the pilots got him in the face with the back of an axe.
Yes. And then Glenn Tripp, the stewardess who was a genius, slipped a handful of Valium into his drink.
So good. Like maybe she was DB Cooper. That's pretty smart.
And then he was like sloppy and slurring his words, and his demand went from like $1 million to 3 cheeseburgers and a 30-second head start.
Oh, bless him. Bless him. So good.
So this story has gotten a lot of media attention for the 50th anniversary, but in general, I don't think it gets the attention that it deserves. You and I are roughly the same age, and if we ask our peers, hey, what do you think about DB Cooper? Most are going to say, who? I don't know. Never heard of it. So why doesn't this get the attention it deserves?
I mean, I think a lot of time has passed and nothing has, with nothing to show for it, really. And that's not to discredit any of the work and blood, sweat, and tears that people have put in to it. Like, truly, that's, that I don't want to infer that. But ultimately, like, there haven't been any like leaps and bounds in terms of new developments. So I think that kind of makes it fade into a little bit of obscurity. And then the other reason is that, he didn't kill anyone. So there's no like family that's still grieving and looking for justice. I was saying to Nikki the other day that if Cooper jumped and then blew up the plane, like if he left the bomb on board or something, like if it was a real bomb, left the bomb on board, we'd know who DB Cooper was by now. I think it would be a completely different level of public interest and police effort right from the get-go. Or if he, if he killed anyone on board, I think we would probably have, again, like just a different approach to the case, and it would have a bit more of a enduring appeal in the public because they would want someone brought to justice. But I think ultimately everyone's kind of a little bit too okay with this guy getting away with this crime.
Yeah. I mean, you said yourself he was pretty cool.
Yeah. And then there hasn't been, I guess, no one's really come forward so far with a great film or television, story to keep this alive. Like there's a couple of pretty like D level probably movies, there's that Treat Williams movie from the early 80s, I think, or late 70s.
81.
Yeah. And then Without a Paddle featured kind of a DB Cooper storyline, but I'm sure a ton of people saw that and didn't even realize that DB Cooper was a real person when they watched that movie. So yeah, I think I'm excited that there's a movie coming out. I'm not a huge fan of the perspective that sounds like they're taking. Sorry, Tina Mucklow, no offense, but I love a good anti-hero, and Cooper has all the makings of a really strong anti-hero, almost like in the realm of like Joker. Not that he would like be that type of character, but that's a movie about a villain that's tremendous, and that it's someone that you root for as well. So Cooper has all the makings of that. So I'm not really excited that they're taking more of probably the approach that they should. Like, this is very politically correct and everything, to have like, Tina's perspective, and probably, like some due justice for her, that, okay, she kind of saved the day here. And like this jerk, DB Cooper, is getting like all the glory and everything. So I kind of get it, but I wish it wasn't like that. I wish they were kind of focusing on the story more from his perspective. But I'll see the movie and I'll judge then.
I'm glad you said it and not me, because as a man, it would just be like, I'm a sexist jerk and I'm part of the patriarchy.
I know, yeah.
But I have sort of got that vibe from the handful of articles I read, that it's going to be sort of told through Tina's perspective. I guess Tina and Bill sold their life rights to have this movie made.
Yeah.
And the articles are pitching Tina as a hero, which, was her behavior heroic? If you asked Florence Shafter, I bet she would say, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it goes on for 5 hours. Tina is unhurt. And immediately after, she says he was never unkind. Never unkind. He was always polite. And when he got impatient when we were in Seattle, he was never rude to me.
Yep, that's right.
And he ordered meals for him. It is this, when people talk about, oh, well, maybe she had, PTSD from this and blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, you can see her state. She didn't have PTSD from this. And I think people sort of look at it from the 2021 lens instead of the 1971 lens.
Yep.
Where they were a little bit tougher and not looking for some sort of a victimhood thing.
Yeah.
Right away. Like, was it a hard, stressful day for Tina? Yes, I'm sure it was. Did she handle herself well? Yes, definitely. She handled herself exceptionally well. But
totally,
Cooper wasn't holding a knife to her throat.
Yeah.
I love the fact that she lit his cigarettes.
Yeah.
Which, if I smoked, I don't know if my wife would do that for me. So I love the idea that they're sitting back there and just talking, and she's lighting his cigarettes. That doesn't, I know, okay, I wasn't there. I wasn't being threatened to be blown up. But I just don't want the movie to have a real heavy 2021 political correctness focus.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, and like, I'm even looking at it more from just like from a storytelling perspective. I'm sure that they're finding things to tell a great story from, but like, let's be honest, the drama is with Cooper. The real emotional struggle and the real, like, character arc almost is this man who took a risk and put pretty much like everything on the line, planned it out, not knowing if he was going to actually be able to pull it off or not, kind of overcame a series of obstacles that could have completely destroyed this whole plan. And maybe he had some crazy motivation that we don't know about. There's just so much to explore in the narrative that is held with the Cooper character. Tina's sort of like struggle, or her character arc, just happens because of Cooper. So I don't think that that's the right way to tell a story. And that's probably, people can argue that with me and they probably have extremely valid points, but that's how I feel about it. It's not the approach that I would take. And it wasn't the approach that I was planning to take if I did write the Cooper screenplay that I was hoping to. So,
have you seen Bigfoot versus DB Cooper?
No, but if I ever have absolutely nothing else possibly that I could think of to do, I would maybe give it a whirl. Is it good? It doesn't sound great.
I don't think it's great, but if you like super hot shirtless guys, then it's a great movie.
I mean, I don't not like that, but okay.
I would say in 89% of the film, there is more than one shirtless male on the screen.
Okay.
It's an odd flick.
I mean, yeah, I got that from the title, but and like, is it like a versus? Like, it's like it's like Godzilla. Is it like King Kong versus Godzilla kind of thing, or are they
Bigfoot
like
and DB
bros?
Cooper at one point do get into a fight.
What could they have to fight about? Okay, I don't want you to give away the movie, so you know what? I won't push it for spoilers.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it
I'm
yourself.
sure it's
I'm
riveting.
finding it difficult to explain the plot line of the movie myself.
Fair enough.
I would
fair
say
enough.
the plot
Yeah.
line is shirtless guys working out. That's
Oh,
the plot
okay.
line.
And Bigfoot.
And Bigfoot, they're on like a
Okay.
hunting trip. Like
Huh.
some of the fittest dudes you've ever seen are on a hunting trip together in like a
Wow.
mansion
Okay.
and working out constantly. A stranger walks up and they're all
Who was the
together. They offer him
man?
beer.
This is such an interesting. Like, who were they trying to get this movie to appeal to? Like, because clearly doesn't sound like it was for any of the Cooper, any of the Cooper Vortex fans. Like, who was their target audience?
It's this guy, David DeCoco or something like that. I'm sure I just butchered his name.
Oh, okay.
But
I think
he
I know.
does this like genre of movie
Huh.
that's almost like super soft core gay porn. Like I wouldn't say it's
Okay.
porn, but
Yeah.
boy, is it really riding the edge of that.
Right. Okay. Okay. It's like Barbarella territory.
Yeah, only just men.
Just dudes. Okay.
Just men. I don't know
Well,
if there is a woman in that movie. Now that I'm thinking
huh.
about it.
Wow. Something for everyone, right?
Speaking of men,
Hmm.
why does this story appeal more to men than women? You know, looking around the audience at CooperCon, the vast majority of people there are dudes over 50.
I guess, I mean, I can't totally speak to that being a woman who is very interested in this case. I'm guessing that it's just how identifiable Cooper is with other males of that era, or of I don't know, just other males, I guess. I I've always been, I'm like probably not the best person to ask, but I don't know, I've always been kind of like a tomboy, I guess. Like I was, all my other friends would want to like run home and watch like Saved by the Bell, and I would put on like James Bond movies like Sean Connery and all that. So I've always gravitated to stories like this, but I guess it just comes down to like, yeah, maybe guys see themselves more as like, I could have been DB Cooper, or I want to be DB Cooper. I don't know. I don't really have a great answer for that. Probably. Why are you into it, Darren?
Well, I lived in Woodland, so it was kind of a local story. And then Skyjack really sent me down the rabbit hole. I reading Skyjack
Okay.
towards the end of it, he Skip Porteous and Robert Blevins sort of stopped working with him, stopped talking to him. They told them we're going to write our own book. And so I had purchased Skyjack like maybe 2 years after it had come out. So I was like, okay, well, I got to see if that other book is out. And it was. So then I bought that book, and then the next book, and then the next book after that.
Okay.
And I think what appeals to me is that the sort of perfect heist, that he was able to commit this crime as a very slippery shadow. No one knew where he came from. No one knows where he went. He didn't hurt anyone. He did it in like a charming, polite way. He was smoking and drinking with sunglasses on in the back of an airplane while a beautiful young woman lit his cigarettes. I mean, that sounds so badass.
Yeah, exactly.
And people talk to me all the time like, oh yeah, what are some of your other favorite true crime things? Like, I don't care about true crime. What are you talking about? You do a podcast about DB Cooper.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't want to hear about a 17-year-old runaway girl who was murdered by some semi-truck driver in Arkansas.
Totally.
That was a horrible stereotype, a true crime story.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested in that. I don't want to have to feel bad for those people. The stuff I'm interested in is DB Cooper. I really am interested in the Isabella Stewart Gardner.
Me too. Yeah.
Heist. I'm not sure if I mixed up some of her last names on there, but
yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that's really appealing to me. And you mentioned James Bond a few times, and as a little boy, or even today as a 36-year-old man, when I watch a James Bond movie, I'm picturing myself as James
Yeah.
Bond. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it would be so cool if I could do that. Oh, if I had all these skills, oh, it'd be so awesome.
Yeah. That's how I feel when I watch James Bond too. I'm being honest. Yeah. I also like The Secret. I think that's really cool, and I'm excited that Eric Eulis is kind of tackling that, or has plans to tackle that at some point. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't like. I get easily depressed by like those murders and stuff like that. That's just like, it's just so sad, whether the person's caught or not. I can't immerse myself into that world. But all this stuff, like you put it very well. This is all like, I'm in, I'm down. Let's go for the ride.
All right. What are you going to contribute to the Cooper Vortex, Tessa? Do you have a project you're working on?
I do.
Let's hear about it.
So I'm hoping to put together something. I was initially thinking something on Google Drive, that was just going to be like something that is always like evergreen, that people can add to it. It can be edited constantly, like a wiki for DB Cooper only. And we'd throw all, like, everything that we know all in one place, because there's a lot of websites, there's a lot of videos and stuff. So if you're new to the case and you're really interested in it, man, it's like a real uphill battle to kind of separate the facts from speculation, from things that are just like completely not true and that have just kind of been regurgitated over the years. So I want to make it easier for people, especially for the next generation, whatever, of citizen sleuths, to come on board and come to their own conclusions about things, or get into the case and like learn more about it without having to research and sift through so much crap, basically. So I want to put everything together in one place, kind of like a wiki. I actually found a tool today, that it's a paid tool. You got to subscribe to it, but I'm willing to do it if it would be helpful to people. And then I just want to throw together, like, again, as much as I can do. I'm trying to do my own research on a lot of things, and partnering with other people, in sort of like from the Facebook group, where again, like, I'm pretty much like very active in that every day, but kind of doing a bit of a deeper dive on a lot of things, like the tie particles. I got like a spreadsheet going on that, just trying to give each sort of component of the case its own sort of home, where you can go, you can learn, you can ask questions, and people can see discussions in real time, about like what they think, or what they think is inaccurate. And we'll keep it fresh, we'll keep it new, keep it updated, and then have other owners of it too. Like, I don't want this to be something that like I'm the gatekeeper of, and everything has to go through and be approved by me. Like, I want to have like a few people that are sort of going to be able to make edits and add new things. But I do want it to. I think like the Facebook group is great, and we should keep discussions there. But I want some of those really good discussions that do happen there, that surface a lot of great points. I want them to have like a more official home instead of just a Facebook page. So I hope that other people find this like something that would be helpful and useful, and that they would want to contribute to. So I'm definitely going to be soliciting like more people to come and join and, add to it. But it doesn't fully exist yet. I'm still kind of like mapping it out. But yeah, I'm hoping maybe sometime next year this can go live.
All right. Here's what I want, Tessa.
Yeah.
I want, number one, I want a beautiful timeline of events.
Yes. That's critical. Yes.
Starting with, he buys his ticket at 2:20 at Portland International Airport, and 1980, the money is found on Tina Bar.
Yes.
This is a really geeky reference, but there was this show called The X-Files. Mm-hmm. And there was a website that I went on a bunch of times, like when DVD box sets sort of first came out. Yeah, I bought a bunch of these seasons of the X-Files and started watching them. And then I went online, and there was a website that it was called like the X-Files timeline. And it was a group of fans that had dedicated what must have been years to documenting everything that happened on the show over this timeline. And it extended to like, Roswell, in the 50s and extended like
Wow.
into the future. Every single episode fell within this specific timeline.
Yep.
I would like to see something like that for Cooper.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That I think like that was on my roadmap of things to include for sure. But yeah, I think that has to be like a cool, like also has to be like a cool visual as well, but that's got to be front and center. We have to have a timeline.
The other thing I really want is a document repository.
Yes.
There's the DB Cooper forum has a kind of a version of that, but
Mhm.
the whatever bulletin board or forum software they're using is a little bit dated.
Yeah.
Dave, the guy who runs that site, Shutter, he's a good guy, and he's doing this out of the kindness of his heart.
Hmm.
He's not going to pour a ton of money into that. It's a nice forum. I go there quite often. The Drop Zone is a more modern, maybe a little bit nicer forum, but
Hmm.
it's not dedicated to DB Cooper. There's one thread
Yeah.
that's dedicated to DB Cooper, and because of some of the drama that happened there in the past, and maybe one
Hmm.
prolific poster that won't let it go,
Hmm.
people kind of stay away from the Drop Zone.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. I've like gone in and tried to search. Like there is useful information in there, but then you go like three posts down from this one post where someone was just either putting like straight up facts or, like just something that they feel to be true and they have decent reasons for thinking that or wanting to post that. And then someone with like zero tact and, just like I don't know, personal vendettas maybe like comes in and then just totally changes the course and everything goes off the rails after that. So I haven't really spent a lot of time in the drop zone myself. But yeah, and I think Eric's done a great job again, like with the Facebook group of keeping it like a really, really safe space. I was pretty worried about going into any kind of like conversations because I had seen and read about sort of like how some people had been treated just for coming up, like just for like, yeah, coming up with their own theories about things. I don't think anyone deserves to be like really personally attacked. There are people that make pretty bold claims and, whatnot, but we need to separate like people from the things that they're peddling or whatever and just keep it civil. Otherwise, yeah, no, for sure no one's ever going to want to touch this case again. So yeah, so I want to just kind of make it's not going to be as much of like a community what I'm creating, because I think that exists and I think that's what Eric has done and done a great job at. So there doesn't need to be a duplication of efforts. What I just want to build is, yeah, like a repository for information, somewhere that you can go just to get the straight facts. Yeah, there will be like a bit of discussion again as things need to be refined or edited, or just even made a little bit more clear. That's cool, but yeah, they got to be two separate things.
Yeah, it's too bad N467US Sluggo's website
Mm.
isn't up anymore. Have you ever seen that? You can go on sort of like the internet's Wayback Machine. I think is the only way to get there now.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't. I know that Wayback Machine thing, but I haven't. I've never tried to do that. I should see if it works. Yeah, for a while, I couldn't go on the Citizen Sleuths website until I did a Facebook Live with Eric and said that like my IP was like blacklisted from every device I would ever try to use, and then like I guess it was because it was maybe not available in Canada or something. But then after that, I was able to visit Citizen Sleuths, so that was great. But
Hmm.
it's a lot of DB Cooper things that aren't actually available in Canada for viewing or consumption.
That's interesting. There was that Dan Cooper comic documentary that's like 45
Mm.
minutes.
Yep.
And I got the same message, but the opposite. This is not available
Yeah, that's right.
to United States viewers.
So weird.
Yeah. And so then, Nikki, he
Yeah.
told me, like, oh, yeah, use this VPN app that I used and
Yeah. Yeah.
watch it for free on, I think it was Curio or something like that.
Mm. Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Okay, Nikki, I'm sorry I haven't watched it yet. You sent it to me a while back. It was one of those things where I think I had trouble. I initially tried to watch it, but I think I had some issues, and then he told me another way of like getting in and watching it, but I didn't get around to it. Sorry, Nikki, but it's on my list. I again, I'll take it all in. I'm not going to believe it all, but I'm open to anything that someone has to share.
The documentary maybe has 3 sentences regarding DB Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is more about sort of this guy, Albert Weinberg, I think is his last name. Yeah, let's go with that. Who created Dan Cooper and sort of his interest in the Royal Canadian Air Force and airplanes and aviation, and all these people who thought Dan Cooper was a good guy, and how a lot of the comic book heroes had ridiculous villains or superheroes with magical powers. But the Dan Cooper comic book was just a regular guy who was doing extraordinary things.
Right.
It's a good documentary. If you're interested in DB Cooper or obscure Franco-Belgian comic books, then it's really good. If you're not into either of those, then I don't know how much is going to be there for you. It's not very long. It's like 45 minutes or something.
Yeah, I know. I would definitely check it out. I love comic books anyway, so that would just be cool to hear about how that all came about.
But your idea for this website, it sounds a lot like what Sluggo wanted to do 10, 15 years ago. He was tired of the drop zone, like, you're spreading false information.
Yeah.
I need to do a website where people can go and learn what is the truth about this case.
Yeah.
And no speculation, just the facts that we have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's the only person I know that was able to completely escape from the Vortex. So he was on the drop zone battling it out, and then got onto I'm not sure if he made it onto the DB Cooper forum or not, but he said one day, hey, I'm done with this. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't email me about Cooper. I'm out. And he stayed true to that. I haven't heard a peep from him. And I'm not sure how many times I've harassed him about coming on the show. It's under 75.
Oh, come on, man. Come around.
Yeah, Sluggo, if you're listening to this, give me a call.
Yeah. For old time's sake.
What can we do in the Vortex or as listeners to help with the website?
I mean, join it. I'll probably, need need someone to say, hey, this was helpful. But, once I kind of get it up and running, I'd love for people to say like, hey, I'm going to take on this section. I would love to, fill out documents or, add anything that I have to share, to fill out the flight path or, build out information on this. So I do want it to be totally collaborative. So I welcome people to come forward and take on portions of it. And then I do want to have like a place for you to put your suspects. It will be like very clear that this is a section of things that are this is all just speculation. This is all people putting suspects forward, or even other, a place for you to put your theory. If you have a really strong theory, throw it up there, but it's going to be delineated from everything else that is like, these are the facts. These are interesting things. That's food for thought. Maybe you're going to read this and you're going to, like you're a new person to the case. You're going to read it. It's going to spark something in you and you're going to run with this in another direction. So there's a place for everything. I think it just all has to live in one happy place. So that's what I'm hoping to build.
When can I start hanging out on this website?
As soon as I probably fill up my subscription. So probably in the next, I don't know. I want to say, I'm going to probably open it up for people. I want to say like January, February to really start playing around in it. I have to put the infrastructure in, all the placeholders for the things that, are prioritized that we have to put in there, like the timeline, and a few other things. But hopefully like early spring, and then like maybe that's like a soft launch and then a bigger launch where I'll open it up to the general public to see and play around with, maybe like summer 2022. I do have like a full-time job, so
summer, get to work, slacker.
I know, right?
Until then.
I know the movie will probably come out before this whole thing is done, but yeah.
That's unacceptable. You got to get to work on this.
I'll try. Okay. I'll do it for you, Darren.
All right, Tessa. Is there anything we haven't talked about? Anything you wanted to say? Any question that I was supposed to ask that I didn't?
No, man, you did a great job. You hit everything and more. What a treat. This has been a pleasure.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on, Tessa. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren.
All right. Bye. Here I am again in a position where I'm promoting something that doesn't exist yet. Get to work, Tessa. It doesn't have a name yet, as far as I know. If you're listening to this in the future, Google DB Cooper timeline, or maybe when it launches, Tessa can remind me about this, and I'll re-record this part and insert a real link. Do you have inside information about the secret identity of Dan Cooper? Do you know how the money got to Tina Barr? Want to come on the show to tell everyone to stop investigating your grandpa because he wasn't DB Cooper? Hit us up. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or email us dbcooperpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you to Tessa D'Amico for the amazing DB Cooper space, even though it doesn't exist yet. Thank you to Russell Colbert for the other podcast we're doing, even though it doesn't exist yet. Thank you to Darren Osadich for letting us play his song, The Money in the Man. I'm Darren Schaefer, and thank you for listening to the Cooper Vortex.
Here's a story we all know about a man many years ago. Hijacked a plane, so we were told. Then he jumped into the cold. Lights a bourbon and a cigarette. He's in the air, the stage is set. Polite and kind, the people say it's time to make his getaway. This is how the story goes about the money and the man. DB Cooper, they call me now. Catch me if you can. Rolled up in his coat built tight. He's got enough to change his life. Where he landed no one knows, but from his tale a legend grows. Was a cold, dark, rainy night. As he walked, he saw light. Held his cash close to his side. Just needs to catch a ride. This is how the story goes about the money and the man. DB Cooper, they call me now. Catch me if you can. Went down to the bone. Look for a place to use the phone. Little cafe outside of town. He walked in, he just sat down. Met a man with a cowboy hat who told a friend right where he's at. Into the night he disappeared, and from that night a legend reared. This is how the story goes about the money and the man. DB Cooper, they call me now. Catch me if you can. 40 years, the secret's out. The story has been told. DB Cooper's done running now. He was 80 years old.